So, so, okay. So we were talking about making a song out of these these grips that became familiar, making our own composition out of these grips that are familiar from Blackbird. And so one hang up that you can get into, and I'll just say is this, like, what are the names of these things? And because we're trying to learn the instrument and all that stuff, and first of all, it doesn't matter. When you're trying to create something, like the creative brain and the knowing analytical brain are two different brains. And you need them both. You really need the analytical brain to get through life, and you need the analytical brain to finish stuff, right? To know, hey, okay, it needs to little nip and tuck here. But in order to make stuff, you really just need the creative brain. And the creative brain does not need to know what the name of that is. Doesn't need to know. Doesn't need to know. You'll learn these names of these places and these things, and they're pretty, and it's good enough to go like, oh, I like the sound of that. That sounds cool. I like that. It makes you want to be more in touch with the emotion of what it feels like and what it portrays or represents and how it relates to the emotions of the other places that you're going. Because naming them and thinking about analyzing them takes you out of that feeling place. And then you start writing stuff down, and it ends up looking like an episode of NCIS with whatever. But like, so it's okay to not know what the stuff is, and in fact, it can be good at that stage in the game. Yeah. So I just want to encourage you to say, yeah, okay, don't worry about what this is. Now that we're through all that, I'm just going to talk about what this stuff is, because the trick about it is, and maybe another reason not to analyze it, is that some of these chords do not have good names. Okay, so let's see. Maybe I can light this a little better and show you the fretboard. Hold on a second. Okay, here we are talking about those grips. So this is our start, garden variety G chord. We know what that is. That's G at the 3rd fret of the low E string, and open G, and that's B. It doesn't have a D in it, but you could easily put it. The 3rd note in that G triad would be the D, which you probably hear there. And then this chord has an A, a G, and a C, which is at A minor 7th less that E. And then this is another G chord. This actually has all 3 notes in it. There's B, and then G, and then D. And then this right here, this is our C chord. That's got C and G and E in it. So it's got all 3 notes of that. And then, this gorgeous little chord right here is called a C sharp diminished chord. That is definitely what that chord is called. That's C sharp there. Oh, actually, this is sort of a partial chord too. Because it's just 1 C sharp and 2 G's. But the reason we hear it as a C sharp diminished is that we just heard that E. We just heard that, and so we kind of have that ringing in our ears. So this C sharp, E, G sharp is in our ear. Okay, we hear it that way. Okay, now here's our first chord that's really, really absolutely ambiguous. This chord is D, G, and F sharp. There's no really good name for a chord with 3 notes that has the root of the chord, its 3rd, and its 4th degree at the same time, because it starts getting into debates about these 2 right here. See, this is why I told you not to analyze it, because then you'll start thinking, and then your time for songwriting is over. Okay, fine. So here's D, F sharp, and D, G, and F sharp. You can hear that there's some tension that's there that's not, you wouldn't have in just a normal triad like this if I was just playing a D chord, D, F sharp, A. And it's not a straight up sus4 chord like a suspension like that. It's something different. It is a collection of tones, as my teacher would say. That's what it is. It's a third and a fourth, and depending on, you know, your inclination, you might hear this as the root of the chord, or you might hear that of the root of the chord, because of this ambiguity. But because of the way that it is proceeding in Blackbird, we kind of hear it as a D chord, because we've proceeded C, C sharp diminished, D. If I put that A in there right there with my third finger at the 7th fret of the D string, it doesn't change how we feel that chord, or where it is, or where it would be on the lattice, or any of that stuff. So that to us feel okay, yeah, fine. We're, you know, that feels pretty good, right? Okay. So I would argue that this is sort of a D chord with a little bit of an ornamentation on it, because of the context, because of what happened first, and then, or before, I should say. Oh, let's see. That's a funky one too. So now we have a D sharp and an A and a G. It's those three notes. It's sort of a similar structure to this one. It's a little bit ambiguous. The ear might hear it again as like a D sharp diminished chord, because we have 2 out of 3 notes of that diminished chord. If it was D sharp diminished, you'd have D sharp, F sharp. Wait a second, do I have them all? Oh, we don't have the F sharp. So you'd have D sharp, F sharp, and A, but we have D sharp, G, and A. So, you know, but again, because of where we're going, the ear forgives it a little bit and thinks maybe that was a D sharp diminished chord, because I'm passing. If I just play these 3 notes, if I hold first finger there and then maybe 4th finger there at the 7th fret, and then my 2nd finger there at the 6th fret, like so. Listen to that. It starts to sound like classical music. So that's really because instead of playing the G, I'm now playing the F sharp there on the B string. So I have the full diminished chord. Again, okay, did we need to think about it? Maybe not. Because does it feel all that different? The details of it are different. The sound of it, if I do that with the B string note, the F sharp, sounds detailed different, but in terms of the feeling, the overall impression, not all that different, right? Then this gives us an E minor feeling, because we have this E and this G and this and another G. Because of the way the overtone series works, you'll have another B in that E. If I play a harmonic 7th frets higher than that E, you'll hear. So there's a little B in that chord. So hey, there's an E minor chord that's happening there. And that's as far as this one goes. Oh, this one, it goes back down through this little E flat place right here, E minor. It just flats the E to E flat. And then it goes back through all the places it's been. We're up here at one point with a G chord. And he also goes here with F and A. And I think it's the same kind of thing, that you have 2 pieces of a triad. You have the root, and you have F and A, which are the root and third of an F chord. And it's really easy to hear that 5th above of that, you know, so if I play a harmonic 7th frets above that. So we can kind of hear that as a full F chord. When he does that, oh, and then same kind of deal down there. He comes there to that B flat chord. We hear it as that. You know, if I played all of these like this, you wouldn't, it doesn't feel like you've gone to different places musically or emotionally if I add the 5th of those chords on the D string at all, right? It just sounds a little bit less artful, because there's more sound because you're sliding on the D string some more, and it loses a little bit of that continuity that you just have. Oops, sorry. Just using that drone to get through. And the drone as a centering device kind of affects the way that we hear these things, because we hear them all so much more. We're never leaving the key of G. It's never modulating. We're hearing G, G, G all the time. And F, that F chord is not too far from key of G. Neither is B flat. It's G minor. You might hear that as a G minor chord. Not that, not that critical or crucial to think of it one way or the other. Okay, so I stand by my first statement, which is just create and make it feel and sound the way you want it to sound, and then go back later and go, what was that called, right? Cool. And then when you want to do that, you can go back to this video and like go look at all those names and go, I still don't get it.
Here, and you know that going up to here is going to sound good or similar.
Okay, so I know what it's going to sound. I know what it's experience doing it a million times.
Right.
I mean, and honestly, that's kind of like, I play a lot of piano now, and one of the reasons that I do it is because I don't have all of those associations and habits and knowledge. So I get like kind of a higher proportion of surprises, which is inspiring creatively. Okay. Because you go, oh yeah, I didn't intend to do that. It's like collaborating, but with your idiot, self, like you when you make a mistake, you go, oh, no, we could do that instead. And it gives you a new direction, right? So, I mean, most of the stuff that I enjoy the most as I am creating, either alone or collaborating, is like, I love mistakes, because you'll go, oh, I didn't think of that. What would happen if we did that? And then that opens up something different.
Right.
And just that little bit of inspiration or magic or whatever that happens there. So it's the same kind of thing. It's almost the same thing you were saying a minute ago about like, oh, I need to know what these names are. It's like, I need to know where I am. Right. No, not really. No.
Okay.
Like, actually, it's funny because I was watching this thing with Dave Grohl the other day where he was like talking about writing Everlong, and he was like, I don't know what the name of this chord is. And I don't know what the name of this chord is either. I can't play guitar or something like that, which he obviously can, and he can make beautiful music out of it.
Right.
And that's the thing. So I would just encourage you with these things that, like, you'll get to a point. The frustrating part at this point is where you get to somewhere and you'll be like, I know I want it to go next there, but I can't find that thing.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Cool.
And part of that. So part of that is, that's one of the reasons when I'm creating stuff, I really try to record kind of obsessively. Like, if I've got something that I'm experimenting with, and I'm definitely an experimentalist. Like I manipulate stuff and I tweak it and I tweak it and I tweak it. But is I will try to keep just doing regular recordings, and I throw them out regularly too. But it just, oh, this is the state it was in yesterday. It enables me to work when I'm away from the instrument, which is great. And the other thing that's great about it is that you'll capture some of those mistakes, so right. that, which, let's call them happy accidents. That sounds like that painter guy, what's his name? Bob with the color. Anyway, whatever. But the old TBS painting, you probably don't know it. Anyway, whatever. Yeah, I should know this, and somebody on YouTube is now going to shame me for not knowing who this person is. But there was this painting show on public television, and this guy would, I think that was one of his terms, he would talk about, oh, it's not a mistake, it's a happy accident. So yes, you'll capture those happy accidents when you're doing it, and that way, if you weren't sure what it was, you can go back to the recording and listen to it and go, oh yeah, it was this thing here, right?
Cool.
And it went that way. And then because of where you are with it, it's it's a little bit of, it's almost like hunt and peck of the keyboard, which is obviously not the preferred way of doing things, but you'd rather just know and find it, right? But in order to know and find it, you have to learn your way around. So it's, it's just the classic, how do I get a job without experience thing. And, part of that is in terms of studying this stuff, say, well, what would happen if I played this game? What would happen if I played every other one of these things, right? So I can play them in a row. Or I could skip, I could go and then maybe go up one and skip way down. And then suddenly I'm like, oh, hey, that sounds kind of cool. Maybe I should do that, right? And it sounded kind of cool. And part of it was just that there was pattern to it.
Right.
Because the ear, like as humans, we look for patterns, right? And so we could detect this pattern. Oh, we went up, skip, skip, oh, up. And then we reversed the pattern, skip, skip. And then there's a little bit of tension, but something, oh, what if I go there? And then, So don't be afraid to get lost. That's part of the fun. It's like, and apparently Tom Petty said that writing songs was like going fishing, right? And that, if you don't go fishing, you're not going to catch anything,
Yep.
And so, and sometimes you don't catch anything. And I've really thought about that a lot lately, because for me and for people who like to go fish, like it's about the doing of the thing. And
Right.
so, and I've had to remind myself of this lately, is that like, hey, when I show up in the morning to do this, to do songwriting, because that's when I try to do it, is that really the productivity of it and getting something and having something done at the end. And this is hard for accomplished people, but this is not the concern. The concern is just to go and do the thing. Right. And then
the journey, not the destination.
Well, right? and if you do it enough, you'll catch a fish, you know what I mean? Yeah. And sometimes you'll get lucky and you'll catch one every day, and sometimes you won't. But the main thing is to be okay, because in that journey, you're learning how to find all those places. Cool. And in terms of naming stuff, like you'll probably do better in terms of naming things. You might look at all these chords in the key of G that we talked about in open position and think about the relationship of those places and the lattice. Like if you want to get into that naming place,
right,
which is useful stuff to learn and know. So I would encourage learning it there. Eventually, the best place to learn it really is on the piano keyboard. Sorry, but true. But that's the whole point, is there's lots of stuff to do before you get there, or if you never get there. But in your key of G stuff that we've talked about, we have the three major chords, C, G, C, and D, right? And then you have E minor, A minor, right? And B minor, which are the three minor chords in G major. And, we talked about secondary dominance, 2 of each of those places. I'm not going to go through that right now because it's in your book, but we can talk about it more. And, you might, because you've done a lot of fingerstyle playing, so, just... getting a little dust in the wind there, but the going through some of those patterns and seeing if you can pick out a melody over some of those chords, you'll find some more familiar places, and then you can think about lattice locations or circle of fifth locations along with that.
Cool.